Here's the final segment of my interview with Dr. Sermons.
So what was it like growing up in the South?
I grew up in the 60s. So growing up in the South in the 60s was a very tumultuous time. I was from a big family, very loving family, parents who protected us from a lot of things, but it's not like we were not aware of all of the transition going on in the nation during that time. This was an era of Martin Luther King. This was the era of Black Power. This was an era of sit-ins. And lots of change going on.
Where were you at that time? Because I know you've moved around in the book. You were in Atlanta, you were in Savannah. So where were you at this time?
I grew up in Valdosta.
In Valdosta, okay.
Georgia, Lowndes County. And that's about as south as you can go in Georgia. So
that was when a lot of this was going on with, you know, Martin Luther King was happening.
Yeah.
Okay. So your grandmother that you speak of, and then I remember you telling a story when you and your sisters went to Hawaii, and you were walking through the hotel, and you seen a picture of Queen Izzy. Is that how you Izzy? What was the correlation between your grandmother and Queen Izzy? I was trying to figure out, was it the same person, or
no? Actually, the picture was an actual photograph of the Queen. A lady who had been the queen in Hawaii, and she was a woman of color. And she looked very much like my sister. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe if my sister had lived during this era in Hawaii, she would have been a Southern belle. She certainly would not have been that in South Georgia. But this particular woman was absolutely striking, and she was the queen of Hawaii.
Okay, because it kind of threw me out, because right after you seen this picture, your grandmother passed.
She did.
So I was kind of like, okay, you know, this was somebody that was, you know, important in your life, and you know, she had just died after a trip with your sisters. How did that make you feel, you know, when she died?
I think Maxine was saddened, but not devastated. And I think in her family, that large, close-knit family, someone who lives a long, good life, when they pass, it's a time to celebrate. And so I think she was saddened but not devastated about it, because her grandmother was older and had lived long and well. I think, you know, she would consider her grandmother a community leader. Her grandmother was a doctor. Her grandmother delivered more babies in that community than anybody had during that era. She would consider her grandmother a religious leader, even a crystal ball reader, but not a Southern belle.
Not a Southern belle. I remember Maxine's mother took her on a trip around, just driving around, you know, and was showing her some things about her history. Tell us about that moment.
I think what her mom was trying to do was to give her a picture of, this is who I am and this is where I come from. It all gets back to defining yourself. And I think her mother was trying to help her redefine, because that's a process. And even though Maxine is an adult, here's her mom saying, let me show you some things. Let me show you where I came from. And you use what I show you to help you redefine yourself. Because when you go through certain things in life, sometimes you lose your focus on who you are. Go through a divorce, you get lost. You go through a heartache, you get lost.
Right.
You know, even celebrations, you get lost. And I think her mom was trying to show her, this is where I came from. This is the pillows that held us up. And this is who you are. And just giving her some exposure to her history that she hadn't had.
The book is so relatable, and it's an easy read. And I really enjoyed the book so much. Is that what you were aiming for, you know, for more people to relate to you?
Exactly. I wanted to keep it brief, so you'll see that it's not a thick book. Wanted to make sure that when you started it, you would finish it. But also wanted the story to be relatable, that you could relate to it.